All right, so now we're going to move on to our next hands-on exercise. Before we do that, I'm just going to give a quick demo for something I had shown earlier, which was the SAM tools. And I'm just going to show how this interactive, the IT flag works. So if I go here, it's going to clear, and then I'm going to run -IT, KIO, and the SAM tools latest. So I'm going to run it. Can't find it locally, so now it's going to pull it. It's pulled it. And if you noticed, this previously was root Ubuntu 18.04, and now it's Ubuntu or root at just this long string. So this is saying I'm inside the container. So I'm no longer in my host machine. I'm now within the container. And I'll just confirm that SAM tools is installed. So if you type in SAM tools, it just prints out the help message. So yeah, so we have it installed, but again, it's not very useful if we don't have it, if we don't let the container access any data. So to exit out of the container, you can type in exit and then press enter or return. And as you see, I'm now back into my host. Okay. So yeah, this isn't very useful unless we actually have data that we can run SAM tools on. So this exercise will have you running two commands shown here. And the first is actually going to get you to enter the SAM tools container and just confirm that this directory here, which includes some data, is properly mounted to the /data within the container. And then the second command will use the SAM tools, and I'll actually call a SAM tools command, and it'll convert this mini SAM file into a BAM file, and it'll store it. And that should be accessible outside of the container, so from your host machine. The exercise is again also on that instructions file, and also Louise probably sent a link to it as well if you want to open it side by side. But one thing, don't delete any of the data within this data folder, as it might be used in a later exercise. So just to save you from having to restart your environment. And I see a question, will the new mini BAM file be saved locally at the /root/bcc training/data? And yes, it will be. Anything in the shared, in these connected folders, if you write to one, it'll be available in the other. So there's a question about how can we get the data out later? If you run this command right here, for example, so if you notice the command that's being run, /data mini.sam, it outputs to /data mini.bam. Those are paths within the container based on this mapping here. But once you run this and it finishes, it'll store the output. The output will be stored and accessible in this root/bcc 2020 training/data. So there is one question about the difference between -v and -mounts. So I'll move on really quick, but we'll have some readings about this, but the gist is -mount is just a more verbose way to do the same thing. Okay, so hopefully you're able to finish the exercise. There is, like, we only covered the very basics of data binding, the most basic examples. There are some useful tips, and there's also some caveats, which we don't go into here just due to the time. And you'll probably want to read this if you're interested in like learning about the -mounts and some other questions. We will have a host workshop training material. It'll just be a Google Doc or something with a whole bunch of useful links related to all this.